I'll race you. Oh no! What's up, guys? Me and Auntie are walking in the cemetery right now. You gonna say hi?
Hi.
We are on a trip, just me and her. We went to the state capital of Illinois to visit all the Lincoln sites. Unfortunately, that right there is Lincoln's tomb. He's buried in there with his kids and his wife. It's closed. They're remodeling. That stinks, right? Oh well. Still having fun? We went to the museum, Presidential Museum, which pretty sure is still ran by Secret Service people, because if they seen the camera come out, they like shot you on spot. I am not joking. I watched a lady get yelled at, and they like grabbed her camera and deleted the photos. It was kind of cool to a point, I guess. I do want to show you one thing though. I wanted to film some more stuff, but we couldn't. We are going to go to his house next, and I'll show you some footage of that. But Auntie wants to come over here and take her picture with what she calls the Flintstone house. I guess I should probably put this back in color. It's in color now. This is John Tanner, the governor of Illinois. This is where he's buried. You want to come see? She's looking at me like, I don't want to go up here. This is awesome. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so we can't go inside his tomb, which is way up there. That's where him and everybody else is buried in there. But right after he died, and he came here to the cemetery, this wasn't built. None of that up there was there. So they had to place him somewhere in the cemetery. And where they placed him, actually him and his son, William, they laid him in here. This is where they rested until minor construction, well, started up here, because that wasn't built till later. But this is where they stayed. This is where they were, right in here. It's the first burial place for Lincoln, right here. And then they moved him up. And then that's a totally different story. After they moved him up there, and grave robbers tried to steal his body, and that's a whole, if you guys don't know, look it up. It's very interesting. It's very cool. Our next stop, I think we're gonna go to his house, right?
Yep.
Or do you want food?
House first.
House first?
Then food.
Okay, she says house first, then food. So she's the boss today. But anyways, if you ever come to Springfield, come here to Oak Ridge Cemetery. Okay guys, we are about to go inside Lincoln's home. It's right there. We're gonna take a tour inside. I don't know if I can film or not, but if I can, I will film it. If I can't, I'm gonna film it. You heard me, I'm a rebel. Anyway.
When you come to visit the Lincolns, this front room was a room you would have been shown into. This is the front parlor, and it is the most formal room in the house. Mrs. Lincoln grew up in extreme luxury in Lexington, Kentucky, so she was used to being a hostess and giving parties, and she would use this room to do that. This room had your best furniture, your most impressive pieces to display to people. It was a room that invited guests, business associates of Mr. Lincoln, and political allies that Mr. Lincoln would have been shown into. This room was so formal that it was about the only room in the house that the Lincoln boys had rules. And that is, you do not come in here unless you must, and if you do come in here, you better not be playing. This is the sitting room. In a modern home, it would be like a family room. This is where the boys could come, study, play. It was not unusual that after dinner, Willie, Tad, Robert, Mr. and Mrs. Lincoln would come into this room. The boys would either, again, study or read, or more likely they'd have been on the floor wrestling, playing with their toys, or the 80 to 90 pound yellow Labrador mixed dog Fido, or one of the 8 to 9 cats that Mr. Lincoln kept in the house. Mr. Lincoln would have been on the floor right there with them. Mrs. Lincoln would probably come over to her sewing chest. Sewing was very, very important. Clothes were expensive, so you had to know how to keep, make, and maintain your own clothes. And with 3 growing, very active boys, that was probably almost a full-time job for Mrs. Lincoln. If you notice on top of Mrs. Lincoln's sewing cabinet, you'll see a nightcap. That nightcap was actually made by Mrs. Lincoln for one of her hired girls. So you're getting to see something that was actually made by Mrs. Lincoln's own 2 hands. And it was only for the lady in the house. Only the lady. Yep. The kids, Mr. Lincoln would never have dreamed of using, and certainly not the hired girl. That is a commode. The toilet. That, and again, this was a high-end luxury item. This showed you came from a high-end house, and only Mrs. Lincoln used it. No other family member. The bed, no. I can Paul to think the guests were actually seeing this part of her house. This was pretty much just for the use of the family. The room that you saw here in 1860, Mr. Lincoln purchased this stove for Mrs. Lincoln. And this stove is a top-of-the-line, high-end kitchen appliance from the era. This is wood burning, cast iron, has an oven, and 4 burners. Mrs. Lincoln loved the stove so much she was insistent it was going with her to Washington, D.C. It took some time, but Mr. Lincoln finally convinced her that their new address, the White House, probably had enough stoves, and also that she wouldn't have to worry about the cooking while she was there.
It's got 3 poopers, Auntie.
Did it have no shower?
No. This is an outhouse. This is where they went potty. But they had 3 seats. That's high tech.